So then you can sit down then. So today is the 21st Sunday after Pentecost. And the epistle is taken from St. Paul's letter to the Ephesians, chapter 6. Brethren, be strengthened in the Lord and in the might of his power. Put you on the armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the deceits of the devil. For our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the world of this darkness, against the spirits of wickedness in the high places. Therefore take unto you the armor of God, that you may be able to resist in the evil day, and to stand in all things perfect. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of justice, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. In all things taking the shield of faith, wherewith you may be able to extinguish all the fiery darts of the most wicked one. And take unto you the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And then the gospel. It's taken from that according to St. Matthew chapter 18. At that time Jesus spoke to his disciples this parable. The kingdom of heaven is likened to a king who would take an account of his servants. And when he had begun to take the account, one was brought to him that owed him 10,000 talents. And as he had not wherewith to pay it, his Lord commanded that he should be sold, and his wife and children, and all that he had, and payment to be made. But the servant falling down besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And the Lord of that servant, being moved with pity, let him go, and forgave him the debt. But when that servant was gone out, he found one of his fellow servants that owed him 100 pence. And laying hold of him, he throttled him, saying, Pay what thou owest. And his fellow servant, falling down, besought him, saying, Have patience with me, and I will pay thee all. And he would not, but went and cast him into prison till he paid the debt. Now his fellow servants, seeing what was done, were very much grieved. And they came and told their Lord all that was done. Then his Lord called him, and saith to him, Thou wicked servant, I forgave thee all the debt, because thou besoughtest me. Shouldst not thou then have had compassion also on thy fellow servant, even as I had compassion on thee? And his Lord, being angry, delivered him to the torturers, until he paid all the debt. So also shall my heavenly Father do to you, if you forgive not everyone his brother from your hearts. Thus far the words of today's Holy Gospel. So then in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. So today is the 21st Sunday after Pentecost. Good to be back here in Denver, and during the course of this last month, a little more than a month, Father Giselle and myself were traveling overseas. On September 11th, I left to go to the Philippines. Father Giselle left on September the 8th. We met in Manila, and then we traveled around our old stomping grounds in the Philippines, visiting Philippines first for a couple of weeks, and then over to Singapore, and then from Singapore to Malaysia, which is nearby Singapore in Asia there, and then over to Korea and Japan, and then back through England, back to the United States, visiting various faithful of the resistance against this modernism going on within the society. During the course of our trip, on October the 3rd, we were in Singapore, and that's the headquarters of the society in Asia, a very rich island, and if you litter, I think it's a death penalty. There is no litter to be found anywhere in Singapore, no cracks to be found in the road. It's illegal to have a dent in your car. No car can be more than 10 years old. It's the the heaven of materialism in Singapore. That's where our headquarters are, and easy to travel all over Asia. So that's where our headquarters are. We arrived there in early October the 1st, and then on October the 3rd, I received my expulsion from the Society of St. Pius X there in Singapore. And then Father Giselle received his the next day on October the 4th. And then a few days later, on October the 8th, Bishop Williamson received his expulsion notice as well in the course of that week. So those things that happened during the course of our journey, the invalid expulsion notices, which are not really worth the paper that they were written on, that we received. Father Couture, of course, was out of town because he's generally flying all over the world and not usually at home in Singapore. So, of course, he wasn't there to hand out our expulsions. It was a delegate that gave our expulsion notices. Then also during that journey of Asia, we visited about 300 faithful, a little bit more than 300 faithful, 120 in one parish in South Leyte, in Maasin Leyte, where we have a congregation there. But in all other places, just small groups here and there, about 40 in Singapore, other places, a few here and there. And then many were afraid to come and see us because of being afraid of being refused the sacraments. In the Philippines, in Iloilo, a man named Joseph, who was one of my parishioners, was a worker, a carpenter, a very poor man, has 7 children. He used to come to the parish when I was the pastor there about 5 or 6 years ago or so. And he came to my Mass, and he was fired. He was removed from the parish. He was a gardener. His only income, of his 7 children, his only income was working 3 days a week for our society. About $75 a month was his income. And he was fired, and has no means of sustenance for his family, and when he was already living in poverty, fired because he came to our Mass, came to my Mass. And so threats were handed out, different kinds of, it was a very interesting journey in Cebu and Bohol. The people were told to not speak to us, to not receive us. We go to a house and they lock us out. We go to another house and say nobody is at home. And so on. But then we have a strong group there in Bohol, in Dagohoy, Bohol, in the middle of Bohol. It's a small chapel, but almost 90% of the chapel is following us and staying firm with tradition. So the chapel of only about 40 people, 36 of them are with us and staying very strong in the fight for tradition and against the modernism in the society. And then other places they were afraid. They locked the doors of the church on us, refused to allow us to say Mass, even private Masses on the side altars in the Philippines. In Manila, we had Mass in the street. It was a very interesting journey, but it also very fruitful. We picked up another priest for tradition for the fight of the resistance, a Japanese priest in Japan, Tokyo, Father John Narihai, who has been saying the Latin Mass the last 12 or 14 years. But about 10 years ago, he had a falling out with a local society superior, and he was thrown aside and has been without contact with traditional priests for 10 years. And so he was very happy to receive us and to meet with us and join our resistance, and is standing strong against the new liberalism within the society. Also in England, we met a priest or two who were supporting the work that we're doing. And then as well, Father Ortiz, who was another priest in the Philippines with us, also joined us at this time. He returned to the United States same time we did, which was last Saturday, not yesterday, but a week ago Saturday, when we returned to America. Father Giselle and myself, Father Ortiz also arrived. He is a Colombian priest from Colombia, South America, a priest of the society, but he is very fluent in English. He's been in English-speaking countries the last 12 years, and he's now going to be helping Father Ringrose in Washington, D.C. area and Vienna, Virginia. And so then, as well, priests of South America are beginning to consider getting organized. We're going to try to meet with them in the next few weeks in Brazil, South America, and to form a resistance of the Spanish-speaking priests and see who is willing to fight together. There are already several priests there, but they're a little bit disorganized and spread about. So we'll try to cobble together a group there organized in South America in the next few weeks. And so in England, before we arrived in England, an Englishman and an English lady who were running the blog Ignis Ardens, who were moderating that blog, they were threatened with the refusal of Holy Communion if they continued to moderate the blog, and being recommended by Father Morgan to back down lest they be refused Holy Communion. They backed down, at least one of them did, and out of the fear of the repercussions of being refused the sacraments for moderating a blog in which they do not say anything inappropriate or negative, but the word is that Benzingen has decided that there can be no opposition. There can be no opposition of any kind tolerated of the Bishop Fillet, Benzingen, the new direction of the Society of St. Pius X. And then today, a few considerations. I'll try to be more brief than this morning on a talk of Father Pfluger, who is the first assistant of the Society, in which he gives an interview to Kirchlich Umschau, however you pronounce it, Church Review in German, a German Catholic publication, just a week or two ago, a few days ago, about the present situation of the Society. And he confirms that the direction of the Society of St. Pius X, the new direction, is maintained. This direction of going back towards modernist Rome to try to make a false agreement with Rome, this direction of modernism is being maintained, neo-modernism within the Society. And that there are two theologies within the Society of St. Pius X. There is a traditional theology, which is maintained by Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, and is seen in the person of Bishop Williamson, and the traditional theology of the Society of St. Pius X, which is very simple, very clear, and even idiots can understand it. There is only one true Catholic Church outside of which there is no salvation. Modernism is the grave heresy of our time. This must be condemned boldly, that modernism which is being taught by the new church today, and must be boldly condemned. We must bring back the Catholic Church to Catholic tradition. Rome must convert. Rome has fulfilled the prophecy of Our Lady of La Salette. When Our Lady of La Salette said in 1840s, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. But the time will come in the 20th century and Rome loses the faith. We have experienced that in the last 50 years since Vatican II. The great loss of faith coming from Rome and spreading throughout the entirety of the world. No country is missed in this loss of faith. Souls leaving the church throughout the whole world because of a loss of faith and because of a teaching of a new faith, a modernist faith that was condemned by St. Pius X, essentially evolution applied to the Catholic faith. And this grave heresy has to be condemned boldly and clearly and simply. But the new Society of St. Pius X speaks about the errors of modernism as being the modernism or the errors of liberalism in the council as being still bad, but not that bad. Not really excessively bad. And that we can still work with Rome even though they haven't converted. And there is a greater evil which must also be considered, and that is the evil of our irregularity, our not being canonically approved. Father Pfluger speaks about this in this interview, so we'll try to go through it a little bit more quickly than this morning. The Church Review of German Catholic Review says to Father Pfluger, the first assistant of the Society of St. Pius X, just a few months ago, the Vatican seemed to be on the verge of granting canonical recognition of the Society. It seems now that all efforts were in vain. Bishop Mueller, the new prefect of the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, suggested as much in several recent interviews. This is one of the new statements coming from our superiors, particularly from Bishop Fillet a few weeks ago, a month ago. In the last month, he's been backtracking, saying that, well, there's not going to be a deal with Rome anytime soon. Maybe I made a mistake in some of the things I said in the April 15th declaration that was sent to Rome, and that we're still against the council, and don't worry. So what is the answer of Father Pfluger? All efforts were not in vain, but an agreement in the near future is improbable. In both our estimation and that of the Curia in Rome, any agreement would be pointless unless we are on the same page about what the faith really means. This common understanding was to be expressed in a doctrinal declaration, which we took ample time in drawing up in April 2012. Bishop Fillet, our Superior General, presented a preliminary and formal draft, but to our great surprise, this text was rejected by the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, so we are back to square one. So here Father Pfluger says, to our great surprise, notice Rome rejected the text. Notice here, you say we have to have a common understanding of the faith. The understanding of Rome and the understanding of the Society of St. Pius X, modernist Rome and the Society of St. Pius X, must have a common understanding of the faith. And we thought we had it. And therefore, we were surprised when the declaration of April 15th was rejected. The most controversial statement of the April 15th declaration says essentially that the magisterium and teaching of the Church, that Vatican II, the new teaching in Vatican II, fits the teaching of the Church of the last 2,000 years. And that it's part of the overall magisterium of the Church. We know the Church teaching can never change. The Church teaching is always the same. And Vatican II is a changed, new teaching, and therefore contrary to the teaching of the Church. But in the April 15th declaration that the Pope, Bishop Pfeiffer sent to the Pope, he says, well, you know, we can take it both ways. And Father Pfluger says we were very surprised that they didn't accept that. We almost have a common understanding. Now consider that Pope Benedict XVI, this is the same modernist Rome, which says that Muslims have a lot to offer the Catholic Church in their Muslim religion. That Jews don't need to become Catholics and followers of Jesus Christ in order to be saved. That Assisi is the spirit of the Catholic Church. That the greatest gift that God gave to the humanity in the 20th century is Vatican Council II. That council that has led to the loss of millions and millions and millions of souls. We see it happening right now in the Philippines. We see it happening in Brazil and South America. Millions and millions of these Catholics in the Philippines and also in South America already are leaving the Catholic Church. They're leaving the church. They're joining Protestant churches. They're no longer practicing the faith. This exodus from the church is the direct effect of Vatican II, which is the great gift of God to the 20th century, according to Pope Benedict XVI. And that is absolutely insane and false. And here Father Pfluger is saying we have to have a common understanding. And the understanding of Rome and the understanding of the SSPX, we're almost next to each other. How can we be almost next to each other in understanding when the understandings are so opposed to one another? But somehow they become close. So they were surprised at the rejection of Rome, of our April 15th doctrinal preamble that was sent back by Bishop Pfeiffer to Rome on that day. June 13th, it was rejected by Rome. How do you account for Rome's change of direction? Well, there's people against us. In Rome, there's a group strongly opposed to canonical regularization of the society. Such an official recognition would in fact be a sign that the post-Vatican II era is outdated and that a new chapter has begun. This is the first point of the new teaching of the SSPX. And that is this illusion. An illusion that if we are accepted by Rome, this means Rome is converting. That if Rome accepts the Society of St. Pius X, canonically regularizes an order of 560 priests in a church of 1 billion souls, that if these 560 priests are approved in a church of 1 billion souls, that means the 1 billion souls are changing. That means that there is a change happening in Rome and that they are beginning to reject Vatican II. And this is a delusion, illusion, and absurd. I have spoken to several priests of the Novus Ordo, spoken to priests of the Indult, spoken to many faithful on the outside. And they all say, we see that the SSPX is coming back to the church. The SSPX is leaving behind its right-wing extremism. The SSPX is going to be received back into the fold because of the great generosity of the Pope. They do not see that the church is changing to tradition. They see that the society is beginning to wake up and become more balanced. They see that there is a new direction in the society. And what they see is correct, because the society is changing and there is a new direction in the society. But the illusion, the self-delusion of the neo-SSPX management is that when Rome accepts us, then that means Rome's changing. We have puffed ourselves up thinking we're so powerful, so great, so essential for the salvation of the church, that when we get accepted, then everything's okay. Bishop Fillet said, the only answer to the crisis in the church is that we, SSPX, maintain our identity. The only answer to the present crisis of the church is the Society of St. Pius X, a very small order in the church, maintaining its identity. That is absurd. We know that the Blessed Virgin Mary said that the answer to the crisis in the church was, she said Rome would lose the faith in the 1840s. She said Rome would lose the faith back in the 1600s, 400 years ago. And she also said the answer. Our Lady of Fatima prophesied that Rome would have a great crisis and there would be a loss of faith, and there would be Rome itself would be the instrument of destroying the souls in the secret of Fatima. And Our Lady of La Salette, Our Lady of Fatima, Our Lady of Quito, they all said the answer. The answer is Mary, the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God. She's going to be the one to crush the head of the serpent. And St. Louis de Montfort, the great apostle of Mary, St. Louis de Montfort said, at the end of times, God will reserve the victory to His Holy Mother. Remember that in earlier times, great saints, St. Dominic, conquered the Albigensian heresy. St. Pius X saved the church for a time in the battle against modernism 100 years ago. And other great saints saved the church at different times. But at the end of times, towards the end of the world, it will not be a great saint that saves the church. It will be the Mother of God. St. Louis de Montfort says that. And he is a great lover of Mary. And Our Lady herself said that in 3 different apparitions at least, and plus Akita, many apparitions. She said that, approved by the church, she said the same thing. And now Bishop Fillet says the only answer to the crisis in the church is the SSPX. This is absurd. And it's a basis and a foundation of the illusion that we are experiencing in the society. It is a very grave illusion. And it's delusional. It is a very serious and deep pride that we think we are the only answer to the crisis in the church. So if we're approved, says Father Pfluger, it means a new chapter has begun in the church. That's an illusion. Do you think that there will be a recognition of the society? Because remember, it fell through this summer. Do you think there could be a new development? And Father Pfluger responds, not just think, I know. The facts are what they are. The church everywhere in the world, with some rare exceptions, is undergoing a process of self-destruction. Not just in Europe, in Latin America, for example. Things don't seem to be any better, and so on. Throughout the world, there's all kinds of problems. 120,000 leaving the church every year in Germany. And then Father Pfluger says, Joseph Ratzinger, as a council father 50 years ago, spoke of a church, quote, imbued with the spirit of paganism, unquote, which the council did its part to usher in. And this is very, very deceptive. Here, Father Pfluger gives the impression to traditional Catholics who don't know the mainstream teaching of Cardinal Ratzinger, now Pope Benedict XVI. Look at this, 50 years ago in the council. Joseph Ratzinger said that the church is imbued with the spirit of paganism. Maybe he was one of the good guys in the council. And that's the impression. It's an impression. It isn't precisely what he says, but it's the impression that is given. Even Joseph Ratzinger said that the church is imbued with the spirit of paganism 50 years ago. But what does he say 50 years now? He says Vatican II was the greatest gift of the church of the 20th century. And remember, during the council, he was a scandal amongst many of the priests in the council because Father Ratzinger did not wear a cassock, did not wear a clerical garb during the council. And some of the council fathers said, you're a priest, you need to dress like a priest. But if you'll see pictures of Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger, at that time, Father Ratzinger, one of the periti of the council, he was in a suit and tie. He did not wear a cassock. He did not wear a clerical garb. He was saying, this is going to be the priest of the future. The priest of the future is not going to wear a clerical garb. He's going to dress just like everybody else. He was one of the great progressivists and liberals at the council. But when you hear this expression quoted by Father Pfluger in this interview of just a little while ago, a week or two ago, one gets the impression that he was a traditional man back in the time of the council, Joseph Ratzinger. He was not. And so I am convinced, continuing Father Pfluger, that this turn of events, on the one hand, will bring the bishops to a more sober frame of mind, and on the other hand, will leave only the conservatives holding fast, meaning those who quite simply wish to believe as the Church has always believed, and to persevere in their Catholic faith. And with those holding fast, we will no longer need to argue. Agreement in the faith will soon follow. This is very significant. This is a second new teaching of the society. The first teaching is a kind of a principle. And that is, SSPX is the source of the conversion of Rome and is the source of the correction of the Church. We are the only hope and the last hope. Several priests have told me that. Several different priests have told me, priests of the society, in the course of the last 3 months. But if the society collapses, there's no more hope for the Church. We are the last bastion of truth. Priests have told me that. And yet we know that the Society of St. Pius X is an order within the Church. And if it collapses, it collapses. Other orders have collapsed before. God will save the Church. God has protected the Church. God has not promised the protection of the SSPX. But He has promised the protection of the Church. The Church will be indefectible, not the SSPX. The new teaching is the SSPX is indefectible. The SSPX is impeccable. The SSPX is infallible. That's the new idea. Underlying all of these changes and making them believable. And so, it's not true that we are infallible and impeccable. Now there is a second teaching. With those holding fast, we will no longer need to argue. Who are these ones? They are the Fraternity of St. Peter. They are the Institute of Christ the King. They are the Good Shepherd Institute. Father Refon, Bishop Refon in the St. John Vianney in South America, in Brazil. The Redemptorists in Scotland, and so on. These inbuilt communities, which are celebrating the Latin Mass, but have realigned themselves with modernist Rome, and have accepted the Vatican II documents in the spirit of the Church, in the spirit of tradition, in the light of tradition. In 1989-1990, Archbishop Lefebvre said, "They have betrayed us. They have betrayed us. They have betrayed us." He repeated it at least 3 times. These have the Latin Mass. But what have they done? They have united this Latin Mass with modernism. They have accepted the Latin Mass under the conditions of the acceptance of the new Mass, under the conditions of the acceptance of Vatican II and the light of tradition, and therefore they have betrayed the fight of tradition. And Archbishop Lefebvre, in 1990, they have betrayed us. They have betrayed us. They have betrayed us. That was 22 years ago. Now, Father Pfluger says, we will no longer need to argue with them. Now they're our friends. What changed? They didn't change, so we have changed. The second new teaching, there cannot be any criticism of the fellow traditional Catholics. This explains why many priests throughout the Society of St. Pius X are saying it's okay to go to the end-old Mass. It's okay to go to the Summum Pontificum Mass. You can go to those Masses, it's fine. Many priests are saying that. It's coming from the top. It's not just something that some priests are inventing on their own. Father Novak in the conference in Kansas City a couple of years ago mentioned one criticism of the fraternity of St. Peter. His tape was not sold. They deleted his one sentence against the fraternity of St. Peter. He was not supposed to criticize the order that was founded in 1988 for the purpose of destroying the Society of St. Pius X. He was not supposed to criticize the order of priests that left the SSPX in 1988 for the purpose of modernization and for the purpose of a reunion with Rome in a false way, for the purpose of betraying the fight of Catholic tradition. We can't criticize them anymore. No more. Now they are our brothers. Bishop Fillet said that in an interview in May of 2012. Our brothers in tradition. A second new teaching. And then it goes on. Do you foresee a new excommunication of the society? No, there won't be a new excommunication. These honest souls are very impressed by traditional doctrine and worship, says Father Pfluger. Even if they still attend the new Mass, they observe the society, they follow it with interest, they seek to contact us, they ask for our publications, they stay in communication with us. The same holds true for the Ecclesia Dei communities, which we just named a moment ago. And among diocesan priests who, thanks to the motu proprio of 2007, have begun to celebrate the Tridentine Mass, we are more than just a society with almost 600 priests. Our influence is deeply felt in the Church, and particularly in those circles in which have a future. If the Romans want to save face, they'll wisely avoid an excommunication which they will soon have to revoke. What's the future? The future is in the conservatives. The future is in the conservatives. And so therefore, we need to join the conservatives. You see, there's a false dichotomy between the liberals and the conservatives. They are both on the same train track. They are both going down to the same pit. The liberal is the foot that's forward, and the conservative is the foot that's back. When you walk, you have to have 2 feet. One step forward, that's liberal. The step that's back is conservative. And then the other left foot goes forward, now he's liberal, and the other guy's conservative. And then the other foot goes forward, now he's liberal, and the other guy's conservative. And it keeps walking like that. All a conservative is a liberal who's a step behind. That's it. A conservative is the same as a liberal. That's all he is. We are not conservatives. And also the very word conservative. What are you trying to do? You're trying to conserve. You're trying to keep something. Trying to just preserve something that's dying. Something that you're losing. We're not trying to preserve the faith. We're trying to conquer the world with it. We're trying to spread it. We're trying to kill the enemies of it. The enemies of faith. We're not killing persons. We're killing the heresies. We're attacking the heresies. We are not here only to conserve. We're not trying to be normal. We're not trying to be one step behind. But Father Pfluger says the future is in the conservatives. We're entering into their language. When you enter into the language of the enemy, you fall into the trap of the enemy. We stick with Catholic language. One truth. That is not conservative. That is not liberal. It is above both of them. It is the eternal truth given to us by God in our Holy Roman Catholic Church, which is immutable and must be handed down as a deposit of faith from generation to generation to generation. And now, the future is in the conservatives, so we've got to join the conservatives. Not so. The future is in Mary, the future is in the faith that is neither conservative nor liberal. So there's still a chance to regularize a society, but it seems that the bottom line is to recognize a council, says the Kirchlichs And Father Pfluger responds, of course we recognize that there was a Second Vatican Council. Archbishop Lefebvre himself was a council father. Nonetheless, we must admit that not only the post-conciliar reforms, but also certain texts of the council itself are in contradiction with important doctrines already defined by the Church. So that's the good part. Certain ambiguities and novelties are at the heart of the present dissolution taking place within the Church. For Rome, it is unacceptable that we speak of the errors of the council. You see, we criticize the council while it was everywhere being celebrated when the church enjoyed a deeper faith and vitality than it does today. And so there's the good part. Here he says, and that we have said there's errors in the council. He does say that. But then, certain ambiguities and novelties are at the heart of the present dissolution. So then, I don't understand why there hasn't been an honest and thorough investigation of the causes of the present situation in the church. The church is destroying herself, and silencing all discussion of the problem will not make the problem go away. And there it's true. Silencing discussion of the problem will not make the problem go away. Silencing discussion of the problem of liberalism in the SSPX will not make the problem of the liberalism of the SSPX go away either. And that is a reason why we refuse to be silent about the liberalism going on within the society. The same applies to society as to the church. And pretending that the council is not to blame and the post-conciliar crisis is burying one's head in the sand. So that's a good paragraph, for the most part. So then the interviewer says, okay, since you seem so little disposed to compromise, why do you still hold discussions with the congregation for the doctrine of the faith? The answer of Father Pfluger: because the Pope and Rome are realities inseparable from the faith. The loss of faith in the church's structures, a loss of faith from which we have been spared, thanks be to God, is only one aspect of the crisis in the church. For our part, we suffer also from a defect, the fact of our canonical irregularity. The status of the post-conciliar church is imperfect, nor is our status the ideal. And so Father Pfluger says, another new teaching of the society. There are two parts of the crisis in the church. One part is the loss of faith of the Romans. The loss of faith. Now, it's interesting how it's said, loss of faith. Loss of faith and not heresy. We have agnostics who walk away from the faith, but maybe have no specific heresy that you can point to. Loss of faith. We're dealing with more than a loss of faith. Somebody that's walked away from the faith. We're dealing with modernist heresy in Rome. We're dealing with an active teaching of grave evils against the teaching of the Catholic Church. We're not dealing with simply a loss of faith. But we refer to it, Father Pfluger refers to it as, the first part of the crisis is a kind of loss of faith. The second part is our irregularity. It's a bit like a wife. The man is married, the wife leaves the husband. The wife goes and lives with another man. The wife kicks the husband out of the house. And then she says, "You're a bad husband. You don't even live with me." "Well, you kicked me out of the house. You live with some other guy." "Don't change the subject. You're a bad husband because you're not living with me. Don't just say I'm a bad wife because I'm committing adultery, and because I'm living with another man, and because I took all your things." You know they have a divorce Barbie. She comes with all of Ken's stuff. So you know that they have, so I've got all your things, I've got your truck, I've got your house, I've got a new husband. Stop complaining about all that stuff. You're not bringing home a paycheck, you're not coming home and taking care of me, you're not living with me, and that's irregular. You're a bad husband. Don't just say I'm a bad wife. And so the husband says, "You're right. I should be living with you. Just because you won't let me live with you, just because you're living with somebody else, it's still no excuse. You're right. You're right." That guy is a fruitcake. The fact is that the irregularity of the Society of St. Pius X is not a problem. Archbishop Lefebvre was angry in 1990. He says, "I'm angry with these people. I'm upset with these people who say it's so sad we're not approved. It's so sad that we're in an irregular situation. It's so sad that they call us excommunicated." Well, if you think it's so sad, you've got to make up your mind. It is not sad to be persecuted for the truth. Our Lord Jesus Christ said at the end of the 8th Beatitude, "Blessed are you when men persecute and revile you for my name's sake." It is an honor. Have you ever seen a picture of St. Paul? He's pictured with a sword. Why is he pictured with a sword? Because it was a sword that was used to cut off his head. St. Peter is with a cross, upside down, because he was crucified upside down. And each martyr is pictured with the cause of their martyrdom because it is their glory. With us, we'd say, look, I don't like lightning. I remember one of our parishioners here got struck by lightning. Whenever the lightning would come, now he's a priest, the lightning would come, he goes and hides in the corner. I don't like lightning. But in the church, when the lightning comes, we got struck by lightning, we go looking for it. Whatever is the cause of our persecution for Christ's sake is our glory. It is not something to be disturbed about. It's not a problem. And if we begin to think it's a problem, we're starting to act like foolish women. No man can do that. Even in our modern feminist society in which women run everything. We can't do that. There is not a problem with our canonical irregularity. And if there is a problem, it's a problem of those idiots that made us irregular. It is a problem of those that decided we're not approved. Once I was meeting with the Bishop of Phoenix, Arizona, Bishop Olmsted, the new bishop at the time. And I asked him, he said, you know what my problem is with you? And I said, what, Bishop? What is your problem? My problem is you're not approved. And I said, okay. All you have to do is approve of us, and the problem's solved. And he goes, well, can't do that. Okay. What am I going to do about it? If I was a bishop, one of the first things I would do would be approve of me. But I'm not the bishop. So it's not my problem. My problem is to preach the faith, live the faith, and go by the faith. And if you approve of it, fine. I'm happy. And if you don't, I'm still happy. We don't care about irregularity. Absolute foolishness. And yet the new teaching of the Society of St. Pius X is our irregularity is a sad and tragic thing. What is tragic is the loss of faith. What is tragic is the abuse of authority. What is tragic is the evil that's going on inside of Rome and inside of the bishops and inside of the authorities of the Society of St. Pius X, who are using their authority to threaten, using their authority to drive people away from the sacraments, using their authority to drive people with an iron fist and a whip back into the arms of Rome, who are the wolves that will destroy us and our sheep. That's what's happening now. And that's a tragedy, but it's their tragedy, it's not ours. And so, the two parts of the tragedy, according to Father Pfluger, loss of faith and our irregularity. And the interviewer says again, are you referring to members of your community who refuse the discussions with Rome? Father Pfluger, yes, but they are few, very few. The prolonged period of separation has led certain members to confusion in theology. Deep down, these persons set faith in opposition to law. As if the union with the Pope, the primacy of the Pope, were just a minor question of law. Here is another change of doctrine within the society. This change of doctrine was said most clearly by Bishop Fillet on April the 14th, 2012, in his letter to the three bishops, where he says essentially the same thing Father Pfluger says here, only a week ago. And that is, you three bishops, place authority and faith in opposition to authority. As if faith and authority can be opposed to each other, which is against the spirit of the priesthood. And now Father Pfluger says that these people believe that faith can be in opposition to the law. And this is what we are every day. Even today, in 2012, on this very day, in every single SSPX church in the world, including St. Isidore's just down the street, the Mass is against the law. It is not approved by the local bishop. It is not approved by Rome. When we had the consecration of the church, Bishop Chaput came and visited. But he came and visited in a limo. He drove through, they had the dark windows in the limo, and he drove through and looked at the consecration ceremony and drove out. But he didn't approve. And the limo came through, and then it went out. But he never got out of the car. But the fact is, not approved. We're not approved. And you're still not approved. Even though Father Pfluger wants to be united to Rome, his Mass is still not approved. And so this great tragedy, they believe faith is in opposition to law. Well, if faith can never be in opposition to law, then it is necessary that we fix the problem immediately by today bowing down to Rome and accepting whatever their conditions are. And the interviewer is logical. So he says, well then, the next question, where is it? So why not just go along with Rome? He says, if you say faith can never be in opposition to law, then why not go along with Rome? Logical question. So Father Pfluger responds, because we cannot exchange an imperfect status for one that is even less perfect. Union with Rome is supposed to be an improvement, not a mutilation. Having to omit certain truths of faith, not deny, but omit, as well as being forbidden to criticize various doubtful and liberal positions. Notice before, he did say in the previous question, there's errors in the council. But now when he's referring back to that, he does not say that we're forbidden to criticize the heresies in the council. He says we're forbidden to criticize various doubtful and liberal positions. Doubtful. There's nothing doubtful about religious liberty. It's a heresy. Nothing doubtful about ecumenism as professed by Vatican II. It's a heresy. There's no doubt. But for Father Pfluger, there's a doubt. They're doubtful. And so, we can't exchange an imperfect status for a more imperfect one. Why is it more imperfect? He doesn't explain. And then the next section on Bishop Williamson. Bishop Williamson was expelled October the 8th. It will be announced apparently on October 23rd. So on Tuesday they're going to make a public announcement about the expulsion of Bishop Williamson. We'll see if it happens. And here Father Pfluger, they asked, we laid down 6 guidelines to Bishop Fillet of the General Chapter. We've dealt with that before, 6 bad guidelines. And this reinforced our unity. So on the internet, there is a debate, says the interviewer. On the internet, there is a debate over this issue. Thundering condemnations are hurled at the society's leaders who are accused of treason. Father Pfluger, you are quoting Bishop Williamson, who was excluded from the General Chapter by the great majority of superiors. That shows how strongly united we are. So the only bad guy is Bishop Williamson. According to this Father Pfluger, Bishop Williamson is behind this whole campaign of criticizing Bishop Fillet. And it is completely false. But Bishop Williamson only writes the liaison comments. And in those comments, he's very measured in everything that he says. And in those comments, he has preached no heresy, no error, at any time during those comments. A couple of years ago, Bishop Fillet asked liaison comments, Bishop Williamson, you must shut down liaison comments. And Bishop Williamson wrote back. And he said, okay, explain to me, I will send you every one of my comments. All of these weekly letters from the last several years. You show me which one is erroneous. What mistakes I am saying, what errors, what evil things, what maliciousness, what calumnies, what mistakes of any kind. You point out what's wrong. And let's discuss it. Let's have a meeting to discuss it. Bishop Fillet refused to have the meeting. They never had it. He never told them what was wrong with the liaison comments. Not at all. To this day, still hasn't said what's really wrong with the liaison comments. Only vague statements. But no statement about what are the errors contained in the liaison comments. They're not there. And these liaison comments are not behind the criticism of the SSPX. They are not behind the criticism of the superiors. They're not behind the hundreds and hundreds of people on the internet that are complaining all over the world about the new liberal direction of the society. He has nothing to do with it. And to accuse him as being the leader of it is absolutely dishonest, completely false. And then the interviewer goes on. But you have a problem of communication, judging by a certain form of forget about that, later. Certain groups have targeted Bishop Fillet himself. The next question. The response of Father Pfluger, the glories of Bishop Fillet, the three glories of Bishop Fillet. Bishop Fillet has certainly done more for the cause of Catholics faithful to tradition than all those who doubt him, criticize him, and even accuse him of treason. For several years he has conducted relations with Rome prudently and skillfully. Never did he act impulsively, nor did he let himself be provoked or lose patience. Today we have the Tridentine Mass, Glory number 1, available to any priest. We have seen the lifting of the excommunications of 88, Glory number 2. We have had discussions on the problems of the Council, Glory number 3. And as an Austrian bishop admits, we have brought the Council back on the table for debate. Thus, as a result, the Council is no longer sacrosanct, and its glory turns to dust. All this remains true, notwithstanding the litany of the praises heaped on the Second Vatican Council during this 50-year jubilee. Our Superior General has accomplished a great deal because he persevered in the negotiations and faithfully presented our theological positions. On that score, I observe that he has only one aim in view in the crisis of the Church, namely to preserve the faith and serve the Church with all our heart. He's presented our positions. And that these positions, we still don't have a publication of what was presented, but he's presented our positions. We are not in the position of presenting our positions. Bishop Steen used to say, when you have the truth, never act like you don't. Don't ever take the truth and say it is only an opinion. Don't put the truth on the level with lies. Even though we must be charitable to those who do not have the truth, at no time can we lower the truth to just a position or just an opinion. And we don't present the truth as if it's just another opinion. This was done, says Gregory the 16th, I believe it is, this was done on Good Friday when the truth itself was placed on a stage alongside Barabbas. And what happened? The people chose Barabbas. We can never present the truth as an option. Pilate did that, and it led to the crucifixion of Christ, and not to the people accepting the truth. One question remains, says the Kirchlich-Spumskow guy. Why is it that Bishop Fillet seems to have done nothing against the smear campaign mounted against him these last few months over the internet? Father Pfluger responds, patience, kindness, and generosity appear to many as weaknesses, but this is not so. Faced with repeated attacks and harassment over the internet, we do not abandon our values and our principles. We deal with plotting and intrigues according to the laws of the Church. This may seem like procrastination, which can be annoying to some, but it can't be done any other way. And if we don't want to betray our own ideals, I would like to make this clear. Let no one imagine that he can criticize authority with impunity. So the first statement, patience, kindness, generosity, appear as weaknesses, but it isn't so. The last statement, let no one imagine that he can criticize authority with impunity. What is the patience and kindness? The patience and kindness and generosity, expulsion of myself, expulsion of Father Chazelle, expulsion of Bishop Williamson, all unjust, expulsion of other priests, refusing Holy Communion, threatening the people to be refused Holy Communion, the environment of fear all throughout the Society of St. Pius X for those that might come to our Mass or might be involved in this resistance against the liberalism in the society, threats to remove children from the schools if they don't agree with what's going on. I just learned of another threat today in Florida. The threat is also there. You don't approve of the Society's application of the Bishop Fillet. If you criticize Bishop Fillet, get your kids out of the school. Get out of here. Fear. That's not generosity, patience, and kindness. And false accusations. One thing we forgot to mention concerning Bishop Williamson, he quotes there earlier, Bishop Williamson was given fair warning. Let no one, here it is, the next sentence. Let no one imagine there can be criticized with authority and impunity. Then the guy asks, well, what does that mean specifically? So you're going to whack somebody. What does that mean specifically? And Father Pfluger responds, Bishop Williamson has been given fair warning. This is a sad moment in the history of our society. If he continues his internet campaign against the society and its superior general, then his expulsion from the society cannot be avoided. So he was expelled a few days ago. Besides his false ideas, he has plotted undercover. The veritable tragedy is the fact that for years he has not accepted the authority of the superior general, but has assigned to himself a God-given mission. Before the general chapter, he rallied priests and faithful to rebellion. For a Catholic bishop, this is very serious. So he says, for years he has not accepted the authority of the superior general. That is false. That is a lie. Bishop Williamson joined the Society of St. Pius X in 1972. He has obeyed the superior general, of which there have been 3 since that time, Archbishop Lefebvre, Father Schmidberger, now Bishop Fillet, down the last 18 years. He has always obeyed the superior general. He has accepted his assignments. He has accepted to be silenced. He's accepted to live in the attic. He's accepted to not preach out publicly. The only thing that he has disobeyed is the Eleison Commons. And in that, he explained the reason why. To express the faith and to teach and show me what's wrong with it, which was never done. He has never rejected the authority of the superior general, and to say that he has is completely false. He has obeyed all of his commands, accepting the Eleison Commons. And the other accusation is in his condemnation, going and doing confirmations in Brazil without permission. He did confirmations in Brazil in the chapels of Father Thomas Aquinas, which are not chapels of the Society of St. Pius X. He does not need permission from the Society of St. Pius X to have to do confirmations, which is the duty of a Catholic bishop, in those chapels which are not our chapels. But it's one of the accusations made against him in his recent expulsion, which will be announced in a few days. And this expulsion is important because it's a symbol. A symbol of the expulsion of the old SSPX teaching and the old SSPX ideals. It is not simply the expulsion of a man, or the expulsion of a priest, or even the expulsion of a bishop. He is one of the 4 bishops chosen by Archbishop Lefebvre to be the defenders of tradition. And this bishop is being expelled. Why? Because of his teaching. Because he maintains the same stance of the society down the last 40 years. And then, in any case, it's going on long as well. The last part of the interview. Where do you see important challenges that we need to face? Father Pfluger. We witness presently a worldwide persecution of Christians in the East. Our task is to draw our attention to our persecuted brethren and come to their aid. The General Chapter's declaration made this clear. In Western countries, parents have fewer children and so on. Why mentioning persecution? It's actually a tactic, a communist tactic, a tactic women use it all the time. When a mother is being bad to the husband, being bad to the kids, being a real pain in the neck, and being absolutely miserable, making everyone else miserable, what does she say? You don't know how you make me feel. You don't know how persecuted I am, how difficult my life is. You don't understand the suffering that I have. And in this way, you distract from the things you're doing that are wrong. So here we talk about, we are concerned about the persecution in Iraq. We're concerned about the persecution in the Middle East, where Catholics are being killed for the faith. Is the society doing something for those Catholics? No. If we're really concerned about it, what are we doing about it? Nothing. We're not concerned about it. It is to distract from the fact that the SSPX superiors are now persecuting members of their own order who are not towing the modernist line. They are threatening those, and handing out punishments and silencing those that are not going along with modernism. And the fear is working in most cases. It is for fear that many priests do not speak out. It is for fear that many faithful do not take action. It is fear that is ruling today in our present SSPX, not patience and gentleness and kindness. And so, we have to stand firm. And that this new interview of only a few days ago does verify Father Pfluger is the first assistant of the Society of St. Pius X. It verifies that there has been no true backpedaling, there has been no true retreating, that there is a new theology in our society, and it's getting stronger, and it's spreading more. Spreading more. And therefore, it must be fought and condemned clearly. And we must stand firmly for Catholic tradition against modernism from wherever it comes. I'm going to close with that. God bless you all. And Father, Son, Holy Ghost. Amen.